Okay, let's continue talking about Arab Islamic cultures. This is my second recording on human relationship, and it is focused on the relationship between people, individual, and other members of the society in the Arabian Peninsula, more specifically. Okay, what I'm going to talk about is the relationship of every individual with other members of the society. Now, this is called collectivism versus individualism according to Hofstede, and the reference I mentioned in recording number 6. In general, Western cultures are more individualistic cultures, and Eastern cultures are more collectivist cultures. And so, what I'm going to discuss today might be similar to other collectivist cultures. Now, I'm going to discuss the relationship between the individuals and how it is manifested in the observable part of the culture, in how it affects how people behave and how they communicate. Now, we said before that the most important two factors in the context of the Arab Islamic culture, specifically in the Gulf area, are the Arab traditions and Islamic practices. And so the degree to which these two factors manifest themselves in the observable varies between individuals. And it's the same with relationship. How much these points that I'm going to discuss gets manifested in the behaviors and in the way people communicate varies depending on every individual, and varies also whether they're more coming out through the Islamic practices or they're more coming out through the Arab traditionalist filter. Also varies depending on the individual that you'll be dealing with. Okay, the unit of the society in the Arab Islamic culture is the family. It is not the individual. And then what we consider family, as I mentioned in recording number 6, is not just the nuclear family. You have the extended family. There is the blood relative circle, blood-related relatives like aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, and then you have the circle for extended family that are not related by blood, then the tribes, then the countrymen circle, then the other Arab countries, other Muslim countries, the other non-Arab, non-Muslim circles, and so on. Now, I'm going to present here the Arabic perspective on the relationships. And then I'm going to mention the Islamic perspective. Now, this is my take on things. I am a Muslim. I am a third generation born in an Arab country, but of European heritage. Now, if you agree or disagree, that's okay, and I welcome new information. But this is my take on the Arabic filter. Now, to simplify this, look at a nuclear family. You have your relationships, your duties and obligation within a normal nuclear family, not a dysfunctional one, a normal nuclear family. Now take these relationships and duties and obligation and expand them towards all these circles that I just mentioned in a ripple-like effect, waning as the circles are further away. This is how I see the obligations and duties and types of relationship that exist through the Arab filters between members in the Arab Islamic culture. For example, if we look at characteristics that describe for example, relationships, loyalty, for example, is required within any family. Every member is loyal to other members of the family. Now, it's the same, but you have to extend it throughout these circles. Loyalty is required towards all these peoples in these circles, but as I said, strongest is in the closer circles, and it wanes as you go towards the outside circles. The same acceptance is expected from all the circles, and a stronger acceptance is expected from the closer circles. Duties towards people, all through the circles, obligations and protection from any member in these circles that I mentioned is expected to every individual within these circles, strongest being from people that are closer to our close circles. Now, this is the Arabic filter for relationships, and I'll be giving examples from the different arenas of life in my next recording, in recording 8. One thing I want to mention about this, that it is not a static structure. There's fluidity in these circles. For example, loyalty. If I am an Arab and I am electing a person for student council, two are running for that position, both are non-Arabs, then my criteria for deciding who should go would be, for example, based on who is best suited to fulfill the duties of that job. Now, if the situation changes, then this structure that I just drew for you affects how I decide who should I elect. Now, let's say an Arab was running, came into the picture and ran also for that position. Then because of my loyalty, especially if he's my countryman, then my loyalty comes into play here, and then I will choose the Arab over the one that I decided at the beginning that he was better suited for the job. Now, this is what happens. A lot of people look at Arabs' behavior and find it inconsistent. They can't understand it. I think that it is following a certain structure like this one. But of course, we don't know what is that person, what is the Arab person is seeing and how the situation changed for the Arab. And we don't understand then how he changed the criteria. And so his criteria first was that I am electing based on who is best suited. And then when the Arab came into the picture, now I am selecting on what is who is closer to me, which is who I should be more loyal to. So my criteria has changed based on this structure. Now I'm going to move on to my understanding of the Islamic filter, how relationships are manifested through the Islamic filter. Okay, now the Islamic perspective on relationships. In Islam, there's a lot of emphasis on relationships. The most important is the relationship with the mother. The mothers are very highly regarded in Islam. And they're mentioned in the Quran and they're mentioned in the sayings of the Prophet. One of the companions of the Prophet asked the Prophet, who should have the best of my companionship? He said, your mother. He said, then who? He said, then your mother. He said, then who? He said, then your mother. He said, then who? He said, then your father. And both of them are mentioned in the Quran, and that nobody should displease their parents, not even with a simple action like rolling the eyes or such, because they come after God and the Prophet. You should not displease your parents. The mother is mentioned in the Quran for the hardship that she goes through, bearing the child and then breastfeeding him and weaning him and so on. And so mothers and fathers are very highly regarded. So they come before my career. They come before my schoolwork, my job, my anything, because I cannot displease them. And sometimes this is hard for some people from other cultures to understand, because the level to which I apply this as a practicing Muslim, of course, varies, but it can come to the degree where I can stop my professional development if I have, for example, to take care of my aging father or mother. Okay, so this is the proximity of blood. Then we move to the next level on blood relative, which are my blood relatives like aunts, cousins, uncles, grandparents. They are very highly emphasized in the Quran, the relationship with the blood relatives, that we should not disconnect our relationship with them. You see, these people, even our parents, our siblings, we did not choose them. They're not like our friends whom we chose. These people are chosen to be there by God. He chose these parents for us, these uncles, their aunts. Sometimes we can't even stand them. We can't tolerate them. But they're there for a reason. And we are obliged to treat them within a certain way of manners, of etiquette, of duties and obligations. And there's a wisdom behind that type of interaction. So if we don't follow that type of interaction, we don't achieve that wisdom, and we lose the chance to change our hearts. And so we have that duties and obligations towards the blood relatives. But of course, if they're going to harm me and harm my children, then I lessen the degree to which I interact. It's still permissible, but it doesn't harm me and my children. Now, this is proximity in blood. Now, there's also proximity, physical proximity. How do I deal with people who are physically close to me, like the neighbors? there's so much emphasis on how to deal with neighbors. The closer in physical proximity the neighbor is, the more obligations and duties there are towards them. I cannot be satisfied and my neighbor is hungry. Even one of the companions, from the number of sayings of the Prophet, he thought that God is going to ask the neighbors to inherit us. And so there's a lot of emphasis on the physical proximity. Then we go to the other circle, which are the spiritual proximity, those who share with us our love for God and our vision that we deal with everything through God. Because in this perspective, unlike the Arab perspective, my belonging, my acceptance, my loyalty is not towards my family or my race or my culture. It is, my belonging is to God. And so I want acceptance from Him. And so I deal with all these people, all these members of my community through what pleases Him. And so this outer circle is the circle of those who are in spiritual proximity to me, and there are also duties and obligations towards these people. Now, all these circles, there are basic needs and obligations towards all of them, irrespective of their faith or race or culture. I can have blood relatives. I can have a mother who's not a Muslim. She has the same duties and obligations towards her as a Muslim mother. She can be from any race, it doesn't really matter. And so then there's another circle of proximity, which is a proximity in humanity, which are other people who we don't share the same faith with, and they don't share the physical proximity. I could have people who are my neighbors and they're Christians or they're Jews or they're any other religion. They have rights and obligations on me as well. And so we go to that circle. There's a bigger circle, which is the proximity in humanity. And so what are my duties and obligations and how I deal and my mannerism with all these people, which are the rest of the world. And then there's another circle, which is proximity in the universe. I share this universe with animals, with plants, with all the creatures that God created, even with the stones and mountains and rivers and such. And there's also a way that I should be dealing with these peoples, with the animals, with the trees. There's certain ways that I should be dealing with that, and a certain mannerism to that. Now, there's also situational proximity, which is it can happen anytime. For example, I'm in a school, so all my classmates, my teachers, how do I deal with them? They are situational. There is also, add to the basic manners that are there in every circle, I add to that situational manners and situational ways to deal with them. If I have people who are colleagues at work or travel companions or some new acquaintances and so on, all these, and as I said, it can be my neighbor and it could be my colleague at work. So he has two kinds of rights and duties that I should be fulfilling towards that person, and so on. And so you have all of these circles. There's no waning in them like the Arabic perspective. And I want to say this is a horizontal level, but there's also in Islam a vertical level, going outside, going up. And that is levels in each of these relationships. There are levels that I can aspire to achieve through each of these relationships until I reach the level of excellence in my relationship. And each level that I aspire to achieve changes my heart, of course, to a better one. And so is there fluidity in the system, like I discussed in the Arabic perspective? Well, not in the way that it is in the Arabic perspective, because in this system, I go back to God for everything, to know how to deal with any member in any of these circles. And so, for example, if my mother, who I'm not supposed to displease, for example, asks me to gossip about my neighbor, I can't do that. Although I am not supposed to displease my mother, but I cannot please her by displeasing God. And so in that perspective, there is no fluidity. okay, in dealing with that, even if my neighbor is a non-Muslim or from a culture that or a different race, or doesn't really matter. There's no fluidity. My loyalty doesn't change if my neighbor is an Arab or a non-Arab, from that kind of perspective, because my loyalty first is to God. If we look at, for example, the student council thing, as a Muslim, I will be deciding whom to choose based on what pleases God. If what pleases God is for me to choose a non-Arab, even a non-Muslim, versus a Muslim, I will choose the non-Muslim if that is what pleases God, irrespective of the culture as well. So this is this is my take on the Islamic perspective on relationships. And in the next recording, I will be giving examples on loyalty, protection, and so on, how they manifest themselves in the school setting, in the political arena, and these kind of things. So we start to understand the observable part of the culture now, after we understand how the culture views relationships.